Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming today. This is our last session of the day. And I will make a correction to the agenda. I am not Pierce Bennett. Pierce Bennett is the Public Policy Director for the Minnesota Farm Bureau, and he is homesick today. So you get the fill-in. Karin Schaefer, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Farm Bureau. And briefly, I'll just share a little bit about me. I've worked in the agriculture industry for close to 20 years. Grew up on a dairy farm south of Hastings, Minnesota, which some would consider it to be encroaching on urban, but at the time it wasn't very urban. And now my husband and I raise beef cattle and crops out in Howard Lake, which is about an hour west of here. So very excited for this opportunity today. And when Rachel and Lisa on our staff went and met with many of the urban ag groups to talk about topics that they thought would be worth covering in this program, over and over the question came up, trying to navigate the different governmental agencies, trying to navigate different programs, funding sources, and resources, particularly technical resources. And so this panel came together really easy and very early because we knew this was something that needed to be covered. So I'm very excited for a great panel today. On the far end here, we actually have John Brezinka from NRCS, which is a USDA agency. Also from a USDA agency, the Farm Service Agency, we have Kajsa Beatty. Oh, I had it. God. And then from the Department of Agriculture here in Minnesota, from our state agency, we have Benedict. And each of them are going to share a little bit of an overview of their organization and the resources that they have. I have some questions that we can ask, but I'd love to open it up here as well. So I will just kick this off asking each of the panelists to give us about a 5-minute overview of their organization. And because we are queued up on the big screen, I will start with Benedict from the Department of Agriculture.
Sounds good. Hi everybody, my name is Maya. That's kind of really quick. I'm a grants administrator at the Department of Ag, and I do have a few slides that I'd like to go through that are representative of some of the resources that are available for people in urban ag. We'll go through them very quickly, just to save us some time. But just know that everything here is on our website in much further detail. I also have cards, so if you're interested in anything, if here's some stuff that seems applicable to you, you can go on the website, check it out, or talk to me afterwards. So, first we have the Urban Agriculture Grant. This encourages urban youth agriculture education and community development. These grants help boards and communities obtain materials and services necessary. Roughly $551,000 available from fiscal year 2023. Applicants can request between $2,500 and $50,000. This one does not require a cash match, some do. And the next application period for this is expected to begin next month, so you can keep an eye out for that. Project eligibility, we've got like purchase and installation of equipment, capital expenditures, or dedicated staff contractor time. Projects have to be located in or serve communities that either are cities with a population over 5,000 or located within boundaries of federally recognized tribal land and serving tribal community members. And those eligible areas are listed in the RFP, which is found on our website. These are some examples of funded projects. We've done the development of a half-acre lot in Northeast Minneapolis for fresh culture-specific produce, community garden hub, outdoor living space, increasing food production and access for existing farm sites. So those are some examples of funded projects there. We also have the value-added grant. This is the grant that I administer. This is intended to increase sales of Minnesota ag products by investing in either production capacity, market diversification, market access. There's more money available for this one, so $3 million for fiscal year 2024. Minimum award is $1,000 and maximum award is $150. This does require a cash match, and it is there's some reimbursement there. So 50% of the first $50,000 of eligible expenditures we can reimburse, and then the grantee is responsible for the next 75% of total remaining cost. Eligibility, this one, it's really helpful to look through the RFP online because you can get a little in the weeds. But basically, it reimburses for investments in equipment and physical improvements that support either processing capacity, market diversification, I should say market, or market access. And examples of this would be like a mechanical egg crusher, equipment to automate pumpkin seed processing, sausage linking machine. We funded an apple cider production equipment, so this could be relevant for some of you who are doing value-added processing. Something that is important to remember with a lot of these grants is you have to be aware of your timeline for the project. So you cannot make any project purchases or start a project until the grant contract has been signed. And if you think about like the application period, like how long the RFP is open, and then signing that contract, you might have to wait like a year or so, depending on what grant it is, before starting that project. So it's a good thing to keep in mind if you are interested in some of these grants, just to be aware of your timeline, because you will be able to make some of these purchases. Okay, other opportunities, super quick. We've got the produce safety mini grants. This reimburses farmers for food safety systems. It could be like a hand washing station, wax boxes, canvas bags, harvest collection tools. Most produce farmers are eligible for this. It is a very small grant, so up to $800. No matching funds are required for that. We also have the SUSTAG demo grant. That is for research and demonstrations for on-farm activities. So if you're looking into having, like, if you have sustainable ag practices and systems that you'd like to teach others, this would be a great opportunity for you. We have the Agricultural Microloan Program through MD's Rural Finance Authority. So they provide working capital and credit for emerging and specialty farmers. Farmers can borrow up to $20,000 for things like seed or feed, land rent, and other eligible expenses. About the beginning farmer tax credit. That provides tax credits for the rent or sale of farmland or different farm assets for beginning farmers. And we also have the Down Payment Assistance Grant Program, which offers up to $15,000 for qualified farmers who are purchasing their first farm. And all of this can be found on our website. If you go to the Business Dev Loans and Grant section, all of these opportunities are listed. You can go through every single one and find more specific information about it. I just wanted to give you a very, very speedy overview of everything that is available. So that's where to find it. And we'll also have my cards. If you have questions afterwards, you can ask me.
I doubt that matching fund has been a real impediment and a real gate. It's really stopped a lot of people from your programs. Because the
yes.
reimbursement side of things is really, that needs to be changed.
That one is tough. So not all of the grants have matching, need a cash match. Some of them do. But it is difficult for some farmers depending on, I mean, if you're a business owner, if you're a farmer, everyone has different circumstances. That can be difficult, depending on the grant, yes.
Thank you so much, Maya. Next, we'll turn it over to Kajsa for FSAs.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Kajsa Beatty. I'm the County Executive Director with the Minnesota Farm Service Agency. This summer, the USDA opened urban service centers around the country, and Minneapolis-St. Paul was chosen as one of those urban service center locations. So I'm the Director, Office Manager of that urban service center. So FSA does two things. We do farm programs and farm loans. Farm programs are price supports, disaster assistance. There are other like ad hoc programs like food safety for your farm operating loan, and the equipment, seeds, anything that you use in your business to start your farm. And then, we have special pools for beginning farmers, for farm ownership loans. I'll leave it at that, and then we can answer any questions and go in deeper.
Hello everybody, I'm John Brezinka with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Is there anyone still full from lunch and all the good food. No one's dozing off yet. That's good. No, I wanted to say first a little bit about myself. I grew up west of Little Falls, central Minnesota, on a little hobby farm. We had some horses, chickens, cat and a dog, so that was great. And a lot of valuable skills through having pets and some livestock. I started my NRCS journey about 3.5 years ago, and I just moved from Baxter to Elk River here in June. So the urban ag, like Kajsa was saying, kind of just started this summer at our urban service center. So we've been working on that. Kind of NRCS's road. So we started as an agency back in 1935, the Dust Bowl era, when the capital saw soil from way west, like Oklahoma, landing in Washington, D.C., and thought, wow, that's a real problem. So Congress passed a law recognizing that waste of soil and water resources was something we needed to look at. So the Secretary of Agriculture established the Soil Conservation Service, later changed in 1994 to the Natural Resource Conservation Service to better service our customers and represent our scope as an agency better. So that's kind of how we started. Different funding opportunities we offer, it's kind of twofold. Technical assistance as well as financial assistance. We heavily focus on technical assistance. It's always free. We can come out to the field, come to your farm, come to your home, wherever, meet you, and kind of talk about planning. It really starts there. We have we call it our 9 steps of planning. I'm not going to go through every step, but the gist of it is we'll schedule a visit, we inventory your resources, evaluate where you want to go, find your goals and objectives, and develop a plan that either we're looking at mitigating concerns or providing a conservation benefit. So, and we have 2 major programs that works through, EQIP and CSP. EQIP is kind of our beginner or starting program, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and then CSP is Conservation Stewardship Program. And within those programs, we have different conservation practices as well as enhancements. Practices that a lot of folks in this room might be interested in is high tunnels for extending the growing season, cover crops, reduced tillage or mulching, pollinator habitat, if you have livestock, better grazing management, those sorts of things. So that's a little bit about me and kind of NRCS, or road, how we got here, and what we do today.
I can share one microphone. I can talk really loud. Can people hear that or no?
You're good.
Okay, well, leave it down there. All right, so Maya did a fantastic job of sharing with us some of the programs that exist and the funding opportunities that are available right now. But would you all be able to share with us a little bit about specifically application periods? I know these programs aren't always open all the time, and so how does an average farmer kind of keep track of those application periods, when they're able to apply, when the resources become available, and then any tips or tricks about the application itself? What makes a good application, and how can these people possibly benefit themselves by putting their best foot forward and submitting the best application?
So I can definitely start with that. So in terms of finding out what specific opportunities work for your farm, your situation, your business, I would take a look at the MDA website that I described before. Go to that business step rules and grants section and take a look at every single program that you think would be applicable to you. Each one has a section on eligibility requirements, and you can see what you are eligible for. Every person, every farm, every business is different, so some you might be eligible for, some you may not be, but you can go through that list, write down what works for you. That's an excellent first step. You can also apply for multiple grant programs at MDA, so if you see 2 or 3 that you think you'd like to apply for, you can apply to all of them. You don't have to pick just one. You can also sign up for email updates through ArGov Delivery, so that's at the bottom of most of our web pages. There's a little email icon that says email updates. That is super helpful. You will be updated when RFPs go out, which, you know, not all of us are on that web page checking it all the time, and everybody is really, really busy, especially if you're a farmer. So you'll get an email when these RFPs occur, which is really helpful. And I was more tips and tricks specifically for applications, but I can even go through that now for you, sure. My biggest tip would be to give yourself plenty of time to complete those applications. Like the application period when it is open seems like it's long, but you know, when you're in the midst of harvest season or whatever season it is, that like the weeks can kind of shrink. So giving yourself as much time as possible to be as thorough as possible on the application and you know, collect those supporting documents that you need, whether it's like a business plan or sales numbers or something like that, letters of support. Giving yourself time to collect those is really, really helpful.
So applying for farm programs, I wouldn't really consider it an application necessarily. Anyone can apply for an FSA to be in an FSA farm program, but there are different programs that are applicable to different things. So we have like our emergency livestock assistance program. That's only available if you have livestock. Our NAP program, our non-insured crop disaster assistance program, is mostly for vegetable and specialty crop farmers. So to be in an FSA program, you need to get a farm number and then fill out some eligibility paperwork with us, and that's just making sure that you don't make more than $900,000 and that you're the main operator of your farm. And so that can be for anyone that's leasing land or owns their land. So those are like the main eligibility requirements. There's a lot more to being in farm programs, but they're available for anyone. Call me up, say you want to get a farm number, fill out your eligibility paperwork, and we can do that. And then if anything comes out that's applicable to your growing situation, you would most likely be able to be in the farm program. One thing that I will say for FSA programs is we need pretty good records keeping requirements, or we need your records to be in good shape. So knowing what you produce, how much that makes you is really helpful. And then for farm loans, having a business plan is really important if you're going to meet with a farm loan officer. Those are kind of the main 3 things. So farm records, knowing what you grow, how much you grow, and how much that makes you each year, and then having your business plan in order.
Is that contingent on any given size? I mean, if I had a small city lot, could that be constituted as a farm?
Yep, yeah. People who are growing in city lots are getting farm numbers now, so you can get a city lot, and then if you have chickens, like you could put your chickens in a program, so if they die, then you could get paid back for them. If you have honeybees, they could be in a program, and if they die, then you can be paid back for them. And then the insurance program, the NAP program, that's when the record keeping requirements become a little more heavy because you have to keep your production records each summer. And that can be kind of time consuming for people. We can go down to it's like 1/10,000th of an acre or something. Yeah, like 4 square feet we can put in a program. Yeah.
I know it's not a Q&A, but what this sister was saying with indoor facilities and things of that nature, is this same thing coupled with the concepts that she was coming up with?
So FSA has not quite caught up to the innovative growing that has been happening with hydroponics. So most of our disasters are based on weather events, which are, they happen mostly outside. So because of the good growing practices that you do when you're growing hydroponically, you're pretty much mitigating yourself from all risk. And so FSA really hasn't quite caught up to that in terms of like what we consider a disaster. So when I say disaster, it's drought, hailstorms, tornadoes, floods, excessive wind. Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So even if something like were to cause your power to go out, and then that caused all your crops to die, that's not,
Something
you would have a really hard road to climb to prove that that was a disaster.
That is possibly a journey that we could be going down as we're transitioning to styles.
Yes, I will say, all of the stuff that John and I do is dictated in the Farm Bill. So like on the land access panel, they're saying your city council or your ordinance or your planning process, that's, the Farm Bill is that for us. So anything that, most of the policies that we subscribe to all come from the Farm Bill. So if there's something in all the handbooks that we use to apply programs, they're all available online for you to read. They're really dry. But they're available for you to see like what eligibility is and like what events are considered disasters. And so if you have an issue with that, you can talk to your legislator and hopefully they could put something in the Farm Bill, basically is how something like that would change. Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess my biggest tip is relationships. Get to know people, build relationships. I have the luxury with NRCS, maybe a little different than the other two here on the panel, where I get to go to the field and talk to people on a daily if I so choose, or have visits to do. So, I get to be out there and build those relationships, be available and responsive in communication. That's huge. That's how you're going to gain access to just knowing what's happening, knowing when those deadlines are. Generally, at least with NRCS, our signups are annually. So when you apply in 2023, you are applying for 2024 funding, fiscal year. We have one program that's on fiscal year, starts October 1, and we have one program that goes by calendar year, so it gets a little confusing sometimes, but that's how it goes. Generally, for NRCS funding, we have our deadlines to take we can take an application any day of the year, but there is a point in which we have to cut it off, and then those applications move forward for funding in a certain funding cycle. Generally, that happens in the fall. So for EQIP, just to give an example, that was October 5th this year. It has always been in the fall since I've been with the agency for EQIP, so that just kind of gives you an idea. Generally from August till November in that time frame. But we can take applications anytime. And then, always ask questions if you need clarification. But like I said, the biggest thing is building those relationships with your local conservation planner that you've been working with. Give them a call, and we're always there to help. So when they're available.
Say one more thing. Yeah, and seconding GovDelivery, we send pretty much everything out through GovDelivery. I would sign up for the Minnesota newsletter, and then there's a specific urban ag one, and you can do the same for NRCS, and we send pretty much all program deadlines out through GovDelivery. So, yes, GovDelivery, sign up for it.
One of the feedbacks we heard as we were doing these visits, trying to plan for today's content, Minnesota Farm Bureau has a Young Farmers and Ranchers Leadership Program. I know a lot of agencies have specific young and emerging farmer programs, but there seems to be a little bit of a gap. We heard that I'm not young, I'm not emerging, but I still need something. So is there an opportunity that you guys can share, where do those, they're not young and emerging farmers, but they still need support. Are there resources? And is there some specific messaging you maybe provide to that audience for where to go for a little bit of guidance to navigate this process?
Yeah, if you are not a beginning or emerging farmer, again, there are a number of opportunities. So we do have the down payment assistance grant program, value-added urban ag. A lot of these opportunities are available to everybody. They are all on our website. I might get a little repetitive. They're like everything is listed, and you can take a look at everyone's eligibility requirements and see if you fit there. And then the Urban Ag Grant is specifically for urban farmers.
So anyone can be a beginning farmer at the USDA if you've been farming for less than 10 years. So even if you're 40 and you've only been farming for 5 years, you're still considered a beginning farmer. But most of our funding is, if it's targeted funding, it's targeted for beginning farmers. But there's no age limit on that. So, or I'll say beginning and veteran and historically underserved farmers. So there's specific targeted pools for those groups of people, but there's not age requirements for FSA funding at least.
But anybody can apply to work with FSA regardless of how long they've been farming. It's just there might not be that segmented.
Yeah, and the funding that we have that's targeted is mostly farm loan. So anyone can apply to be in a farm program. That's not age specific, it's not beginning farmer specific. The targeted funding that we have at FSA is all for farm loan pretty much. And so those are, there are specific pools that are for historically underserved groups, and they don't get touched by other groups of people. But yes, there's no age limit or requirement, it's just for beginning farmers.
Yeah, very similar to Kajsa here, being in USDA. It's all the same. Our services are exactly the same. It doesn't really matter where you are or what age you are. I mean, that's just. But we do have specific pools that are associated to different how to access funds. I'll kind of briefly go through those right now. So when you sign up and we do a visit and we schedule and we come up with a project and we have a plan. We're like, okay, we want to move forward with this plan for financial assistance because NRCS offers some type of conservation practice that you want to implement on your farmland. Okay, perfect, we'll move forward. So depending on what you want to implement, we have local pools. We call them team pools, and those are generally a 4 to 6 county area. Okay, so that means you're going to be competing with those folks in that 4 to 6 county area on that just select funding. That comes in cropland, it comes in forest land, it comes in pasture land. Those are those 3 pools. We have area pools. NRCS breaks up Minnesota in 4 areas: northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. Okay? Therefore, you're just competing for funds with people in those 4 areas. And then we have statewide funding pools where you're competing against everyone throughout the state. The high tunnel is one of those. So when you apply for a high tunnel, you're competing against equally everyone through the state. So everyone in the state would have an equal chance at, receiving the high tunnel, moving forward with your project. And then there are some more localized pools based on watersheds. Those are more specific, but that's generally how the funding and how the pools go, and that's how it's accessed.
So with the high tunnel deal, is the Minnesota Ag coupled with the USDA, or are they 2 separate situations?
Yeah, so Minnesota Department of Ag and U.S. Department of Ag are separate.
So that, because I was hearing this brother down in Louisiana has a YouTube video out about if you pay $1,300 down, the USDA will give you a high tunnel, $13,500 high tunnel for that $1,300, but you just have to do in-ground crops for the first 4 years and send that data into them. Is there any program like that with Minnesota agriculture? With USDA that allows?
Not with NRCS in Minnesota. Other states can do things a little differently. There's some flexibility between states because landscapes are a little different and the customer base is different. But in Minnesota, it's cost share. This is the fixed cost you're going to receive based on what you implement. So high tunnels per square foot. So kind of talked earlier with some folks, but if you applied, you could apply for 4,000 square feet, and you could have 2,000 square foot high tunnels. That's just fine, or 1,000 square foot high tunnels. It's based on square foot for that scenario for high tunnels.
Could you repeat the part for MTA, your question?
I was stating that the USDA, first of all, I was asking about the similarity between USDA and PEG and what that crosses. But then a farmer in Louisiana had discovered this grant or this situation, $13,500 high tunnel for $1,300, 4-year in-ground growing plan, giving the data to the USDA, and then you keep the high tunnel. But I was asking, was there anything similar to that?
It's almost like you're saying it's like a research kind of,
It's a research-based
Yeah, okay.
ownership, where you own it, and it's not a loan.
yeah.
I mean, through our practices, you're buying and you're owning the high tunnel material and everything. So I guess it depends how you look at it. It could have been the case where he just paid, or she paid the $1,350 and received the $13,500. If the cost share rate was that good, that could be the case here in Minnesota too. It depends on the size and the vendor you work with. It's just, I guess maybe just it was explained in a different way.
No, that's not what
But that is
it said in the video.
Okay, and that is a requirement for us to grow in the soil substrate in the ground. We have a lifespan of 5 years, so we expect the materials of the high tunnel to last the 5 years. And then after that, you don't even have to grow in it anymore. You meet our requirements, so you could park a tractor in there or whatever you want to do with it. But for the first 5 years that you have it, you would need to grow crops in it.
And no specific crops, and no specific order, just to send that data in the same way.
You won't even need to send any data into us. You just can grow crops.
See, I'm wondering if what you're referring to, maybe it was some sort of a research pilot project or something to get the data, because that seems like that was maybe the intent, is to get the growing data from that project.
Yeah, we're basically just assisting in you to purchase the high tunnel. It's yours, you own it, you grow crops in it, you grow anything you want in it unless it's a substance you can't grow or you have a permit for, then you can grow it.
Nice. Good attitude.
I have a couple more questions, but I want to be sensitive to audience questions, so, yep.
I kind of have a doozy. So I'm a high school ag teacher, and I've had students get the FSA youth loan. I guess part one of the question is, students in urban communities, are they eligible for FSA youth? Okay.
Yes.
And then part two, and this is for like everyone, so as a teacher and like knowing that urban ag is growing, what resources or programs or processes would you recommend are implemented to educate the next generation about all these opportunities so they're able to apply for them and start on the right feet?
And do you want to share a little bit more about the grant?
Yeah, the youth loan, yeah. So, well, my first thought is have us come speak in your classroom. Invite me to come speak in your classroom. I'm happy to talk about it and just to introduce people to what FSA and NRCS does. Second, so the youth loan, I'm still very new, so the youth loan, and I haven't really touched on the youth loan yet, but the youth loan is available to people who are under 18. That is sponsored by an FFA advisor. A parent can also co-sign for it, but basically it's money for youth to implement any like ag. They can start their ag business if that's what they're doing, or like participate like in a 4-H or something like that. It's the requirements are, I think they're pretty broad, but I haven't worked with the youth loan yet, so I don't know enough about it to speak more on that. So have us come speak in your classes, and I think just, we have so much online, so building like curriculum around including like just like looking through farmers.gov or having them like pretend like that they're going to be a farmer, and like you're like, okay, what's my farm business going to be, like how will I fund like starting an acre vegetable farm, or how will I fund like my mobile chicken business or something like that. So I think just building curriculum that includes like government resources, or like if they're starting a business and they need to get funding, like how would they go about like making all the requirements for what a loan when they're, when they're older than 18 and they're like doing that on their own. What sort of things that would entail. Yeah, and then talking about education, do you want everyone else to talk about?
Yeah, sure.
So I think the urban agriculture grant would probably be a good fit for you. That does have like an urban youth agricultural education portion to it. If you have a project you have in mind, I would definitely take a look at that, like the past year's RFP that's on the website for that particular grant, because I think that would be a good fit.
Yeah, we enjoy and love to come to school events. We do that out, at a lot of schools already. They have like water festivals, and we come and talk about, either conserving water and methods to do that, as well as, growing vegetables, all sorts of things. We have our rainfall simulator, which is, I think, one of the best demonstrations you'll ever see in terms of infiltrating water, and basically what you have is covered. If it's just soil versus having some grass on it versus a diverse pollinator mix and anywhere in between. It's amazing, just that demonstration, how much keeping your soil covered is going to help you infiltrate soil as well as keep the water clean. But yeah, I guess so we'd love to come to schools and do days and have do those field days type stuff.
Thank you.
One more, yep.
I created the first the agri grant that you're talking about. I was the one that birthed that idea.
Woo!
So, point of information, I know much about it. I spent 4 years trying to get it passed. But I'm also, this year, a project sweep we were one of 17 cities selected across the United States to do the People's Garden Initiative. And that's another opportunity that people should know about. Through that process, in partnership with Pilsner United, we've been asked to come up to Broadway and to curate 2 spaces up there. In other words, install an urban farm installation. That has grown to now where I'm looking at crafting, since the city of Minneapolis has a 2040 plan, they want to do cultural corridors. So I'm crafting now what I call the North Star Urban Farm and Food Corridor. My question comes, are there resources through any of your pools of money to actually talk about doing some planning, to convening all of the stakeholders? If we're all well-intentioned, let's start being more intentional. Do you have any planning grants that would be able to bring communities together to really lay out their schematic for a green urban farm future?
Great question.
I guess on the NRCS side, I'm not familiar with any. In general, USDA may have something, but likely not under any of our cost share programs.
Was that a yes or a no?
Not with
So not under our cost share program.
Yeah, so with the USDA has the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, and there are national grants through there to do planning and implementation. And I know most grants don't include planning, but this one specifically does. If you want to use the funds to plan for a project, that can.
What's that fund called again?
The Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production. A lot of it's written out like OUAIP is how you'll see it like online more frequently. So they have planning grants that you can apply for. Let's see, and so FSA specifically doesn't have grant funding available, but I know that OUAIP does, but that's a federal grant. And then I would be remiss to forget that are being rolled out in each city with the service centers opening. So Renewing the Countryside is managing that process here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So those are opening up within the next month. And so those can be, the requirements for that are going to be really broad. talk to Valentine or Kara about those because they're involved in the planning process for that. And so those can be up to, Valentine, remind me how much?
$40,000 for
40?
organizations.
Yeah, $40,000 from an organization to apply for funding for an urban agriculture project. So yeah, those should be open within the next month for application.
Can I add one while
Yeah.
I'm being asked? USDA partners with the Environmental Protection Agency in the local foods, local places, which is explicitly, it's planning technical assistance. So it's not money is the problem, but it's a process to do planning. And it's, Asian Economic Development Association did one a few years ago. So happy to talk more about experience with that. It would be better if there were funding with it.
I definitely don't have exhaustive knowledge of all of the grants that are available. Off the top of my head, I don't think there are any specifically for planning. I think there's one for like doing a feasibility study, but that's really excellent feedback for future grant-making opportunities at the state.
Yeah, it started to sound like we need to have this room come back together.
That's what we're hearing too.
Specifying some grants and writing these things up together to create for our state. I mean,
Well, and I guess I can speak on behalf of Minnesota Farm Bureau. You know, when we threw this idea out about a year ago to put this together, we would have been happy with 10 people showing up. So the fact that this room was full, we had to cut off registration. I'm not making any promises, but I think this is gonna be an effort that we're gonna continue to work in. So with that, I would like to thank our panelists. I would love to thank all the people that came, and set up tables out here, because I think what I observed that was really eye-opening and doesn't happen at every conference was the collaboration, the networking, the talking, and that's basically what the value of this conference is putting faces to names and making connections. Yep.
I've got to add one more comment.
Yep.
We've always looked to ag for our to be Big Daddy. I think that we've got to start broadening our horizons. The EPA, the IRA, has got millions and millions of dollars. Every city, every county, every city, every agency is now in back rooms, in think tanks, crafting that vision. And so I want folks to think beyond the fact of farming, because farming is also a cornerstone in this whole climate change movement. And so I want everybody in this room to start thinking of themselves more expansively. You're not just growing food, you are also addressing global warming, climate change. And you don't have to be a genius to realize that much of the federal funding in the next 10 years isn't going to be going to farming, but it's going to be channeled and pivoted to looking at to agencies, individuals who are addressing global warming and climate change. That's the bell ringer, and that is the canary in the room for each and every one of us in this room to really start seeing ourselves in a greater sense. We're not just urban farmers. We're not just farmers, but we are key stakeholders in the environmental movement, and we need to make sure that we step up our game, we step up our imaginations and see ourselves as climate change activists who are ready, salt of the earth, ready to help guide us through generations to come.
Here, here.
I couldn't agree more.
are we going to get access to this video?
Did somebody?
I did.
I gave her my email already.
And that's obviously why we will find a different venue next year that can house a lot more people. We can think outside the box and we can involve some of those non-traditional groups, people that we don't always think of to be at the table, because agriculture is the solution in a lot of cases to the climate change challenge. And we do need to think about where agriculture is, how it can continue to provide solutions and bring others to the table.
Well, 2 years ago, 4 funding organizations, the McKnight Foundation, Hennepin County, McKnight Foundation, told me, they said, Michael, our reviewers did not see any connection between urban farming as a climate solution. To the Hennepin County's credit, they've done a 360. And some of these organizations, they don't get the connection between the role that agriculture plays in creating the crisis and also the role that agriculture, especially crop players, can play to address the problem. We need to make sure as farmers, and I don't care large or small, but we gotta make sure that we don't get left out of the wheel.
Yeah, agreed. So one ask I have of you, in your agendas, there is a QR code with a survey. I know everybody loves to do surveys after a conference, but why this is so important is because this was the first one. And we think we did a good job, but we also want to make sure that we did it right. And we want to make sure that the topics were covered that you wanted to hear. Feel you can